VINCENZO'S gold crypto investing, and I just wanted to get a little bit of a talk going on tonight, and this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but this is an election night in the United States of America, and I had a little thing going on here, and I just wanted to see how this plays out, and we're going to see. My overall thesis is well, you guys might take me as a Republican more than a Democrat based on what I say on here, but I try not to get into the whole political spiel on here, but the Democratic Party, as of my lifetime, and especially over the last 10 years-ish, has really become more of a socialist, communist type. If you don't agree with what we say, we want to censor you / punish you / use authoritarianism type deals at you. But I thought after the 2016 election, or 2020 election with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I didn't want Joe Biden to win because intellectually and what Joe Biden talks about and what Joe Biden says he believes and what Joe Biden does, I inherently as a person do not really agree with. I am for freedom. I am for a free market. I am for individual freedom. And I am for prosperity for all and less government and less regulation and for the people to prosper. And Joe Biden's more on a more authoritarian type government and centralized planning and centralized power. And I am not really for that. But not to say the Republicans are for what I believe in, but they at least don't talk about doing things that this guy says he wanted to do. But I thought no matter what happened in the 2020 election, I thought inflation was coming. I thought a financial crisis was coming. And I also thought a recession and an inflationary depression was inevitable in the United States of America, regardless of who won that election in 2020, Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And for what they represented and stuff, Donald Trump would have been more aligned of what I believed. But even though Donald Trump didn't, I don't think really believed in what he said he did. He was just wanted to be elected and do what he wanted to do. But Joe Biden, just on his base, I don't agree with the Joe Biden administration and the Joe Biden philosophy. I wanted Joe Biden to win, and XRP Future Millionaire can vouch that I said I want Joe Biden to win because inflation was coming whether Trump won or not. Economic problems were coming whether Biden or Trump won in the last election. And 2 years from the last election, the country would have higher gas prices, higher oil, higher food costs, higher home costs, higher energy costs, and overall higher inflation and a lower standard of living. And I knew the voter is as such an intellectual mind as the masses that they just blame whoever is in power at the time or their disapproval. Whether the people in power directly had anything to do with what's actually happening or didn't, they are just going to blame the people in power if they are unhappy at the current time. And I knew 2 years into the future, which we blinked of an eye, and now we're into the future 2 years in 2022 on this midterm election. And I told XRP Future Millionaire and all the people at work that didn't like the fact that Joe Biden won, that I thought in 2 years the United States would win the, I believe it is the Senate, that is a 50-50 tie going into this election, and the tiebreaker is the vice president. I told them that the Republicans would take over the 50-50 tie, which I believe is the Senate, right? I believe, you need 51 for the majority, so it is the Senate. And I believe the Republicans tonight will take over the Senate, and right now they're 40-39 lead. I believe they will overtake the Senate, as was my forecast in 2020. And I also now think the House of Representatives, now that the inflation thing is coming up and whatnot, I think it's a 75 or 80% certainty that the Republicans are going to take control of the House, and the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate will be controlled by the Republicans. And that's why I wanted Joe Biden to win, not because I like Republicans, not because I like Democrats, but because the modern-day Democrat is not a John F. Kennedy Democrat. It is more of a Joseph Stalin Democrat, where they are authoritarian in nature. And I would rather the Democrats be looked at in history in 10 years from now as fucking up everything, even if they had to do with the fucking up, or even if they had nothing to do with the fucking up. I would rather the country piece together and correlate Democrats with the nasty inflation, the shitty economy, and the lower standard of living that took place the last 2 years versus the country thinking it was Republicans, whether they had anything to do with it or not, just off the base, because I don't like where the Democratic Party is right now. I don't like where the Republican Party is either, but I think it's better than where the Democratic Party is. And right now, I think the heart of the nation, and I think what's going to happen in this election, is at least the Senate is taken back by the Republicans, as they thought 2 years ago. And more than likely, to me, I'm predicting that they take us House and Senate away from the Democrats in this election. But at the very least, the voters are very unhappy, and they're blaming the Democrats because they're the ones in power. They have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. So I like that, and that's why I secretly and openly wanted the Democrats to win. Even though I'm not a Democrat, I'm not really a Republican either. I'm a Republican in theory, based on what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for, right? But they don't stand for that anymore, and they just get bought into this mumbo-jumbo nonsense that they talk about, like abortion and nonsense that really has nothing to do with anything, but it gets dragged into the modern-day politics. But I like to see the Democrats get blamed for stuff, and over the Vincenzo could see the inflationary depression coming, which we are in, and it's strengthening. And I think the Democrats are really going to take the fall for it, whether the blame be justified or not. I'm not saying one or the other, but I think the Democrats are going to take the blame in this election, and I think at least the states, at least the Senate, is going to be flipped to Republican, and maybe the House. And I think the odds-on favorite suggest that the House is now going to be in favor of Republicans, as well as the Senate. And I think it's going to be the voter in the United States blaming the political party that is in power right now and during the time that they are unhappy. Whether it has anything to do with who actually caused the problem, it doesn't matter, because as I believe the American voter and the American populace is at large very uneducated and very manipulative, to where they'll just listen to something on the TV screen and believe it, and they have a very short attention span, and they just know what's happening to them now, and they know if it's good, they'll praise the people that are in power, and if it's bad, they'll blame the people in power, whether it's rightly or wrongly thrusted upon them with the accolades or the shame. That's just all they know. But that's why I wanted the Democrats to win in 2020, because I knew no matter if the Republicans held the House, the Senate, and the presidency, the situation that we're in now would vastly be pretty much the same, minus one or two things. Maybe oil might be slightly lower, but the overall economy and the overall inflation and the overall things that are going on would still be there, but they would have blamed the Republicans. So I love it when they blame the Democrats, because it's the bad they ultimately shit on. But not to say I'm for one or the other. I'm more of an independent, more for freedom, more for the Constitution and less government, which is none of these parties. But I always love to see the Democrats lose, just because the fraud and deception that they use to try to push their communist movement on the rest of the country is just appalling and sickening. So I think tonight it's going to be a referendum on the Democrats happening to be in power over the last 2 years with an overall shitty economy, with high inflation, and an overall lower standard of living, right? So we're going to see how this plays out. Like, subscribe, and share. This was just a election night update. Peace and love.